parents gave my entire $100,000 inheritance to my sister for her business. Now that it's failed, they expect me to bail them out. I'm a 32-year-old man living a fairly modest life, working a steady job and renting a small apartment in the city. Nothing extravagant, but enough to keep me comfortable and independent. My parents, on the other hand, have always emphasized family unity, though in a way that seems more controlling than nurturing. Growing up, my sister and I had our share of sibling rivalry, but it was overshadowed by how differently our parents treated us. She was the golden child who could do no wrong. Her whims often became family projects, while I quietly learned to self-sustain. Years ago, after our grandmother passed away, she left a sizable inheritance meant to be shared between me and my sister. The legal documents were clear. We'd each get $100K. But my father explained that, per their family approach, the money would be allocated responsibly. I was in my early 20s then, trying to figure out my path. My father said not to worry, that my portion was safe and will be there when you need it. He insisted he'd hold it for me, claim it was to avoid me spending it recklessly. I was naive and trusted him. My sister, though, quickly started hinting at how she had a big plan for a future business, some boutique or cafe, the details shifting daily. I suspected she wanted the inheritance. My parents, particularly my mother, gushed over her entrepreneurial spirit. Meanwhile, I was left in the dark about when I'd see my portion. I tried asking once, only to be brushed off with, "We'll discuss it when you're ready for something stable." I had no reason to suspect wrongdoing. I believed them when they said my share was safe. Time marched on. My sister launched her business with fanfare, some fancy boutique in a busy part of town, all financed, I later discovered, by the entire $100K inheritance, plus additional contributions from our parents. I was never consulted. I found out only by accident, overhearing a conversation. Furious, I confronted my parents. "You used my inheritance to fund her business?" They waved it off, claiming it was a loan, and that once her boutique thrived, she'd repay me. My mother said, "Think of it as helping your sister stand on her feet. You're not even settled yet, so this is an investment for the family." My jaw clenched. Legally, I had a right to that money, but I'd never taken direct possession of it. My father insisted it was a sure thing. The store would succeed. They'd see the money doubled. My sister, in her usual grand style, bragged about how the boutique would revolutionize local fashion, promising me a cut of the profits if I stayed patient. I felt uneasy. My sister's track record wasn't exactly stellar. But I wasn't ready for a huge fight. So I swallowed my anger, hoping they were right that it'd pay off. At first, the boutique opened with a splashy event, local press coverage, fancy invites. My sister boasted about how she'd expand within a year. My parents beamed, praising her success. Meanwhile, I plodded along in my job, occasionally feeling pangs of resentment. That $100K was supposed to be for my own future, a down payment on a house, or a cushion while I explored my own ambitions. Instead, it was fueling her store. But I let it slide, telling myself I'd get my share back eventually. Months passed. Rumors started swirling that the boutique was hemorrhaging money. My sister's lavish spending overshadowed modest sales. She'd overstocked expensive merchandise that no one was buying. I visited once and saw racks of pricey items collecting dust, bored employees leaning behind the counter. It reeked of mismanagement. My father, who'd poured additional funds in, refused to hear any critique. "She just needs time," he insisted. But I sensed a looming crash. Sure enough, about a year later, the boutique folded. My sister closed shop abruptly, with huge debts trailing behind her. Customers asked for refunds on orders that never arrived, suppliers claimed unpaid bills, and the landlord demanded back rent. My $100K was gone, swallowed by her ill-fated enterprise. My father approached me with a solemn face, muttering something about unforeseen circumstances, offering half-baked promises of restitution. But with the store dead, there was no profit, just a black hole of losses. I spiraled into anger and bitterness. I confronted my sister directly, demanding an explanation and my inheritance. She glibly said, "I'm sorry, the business didn't work out. Money's gone." She acted as if it was an unfortunate accident, ignoring that I never consented to hand over my share. I demanded she make a plan to repay me. She scoffed. "With what? I'm broke." My father and mother tried to broker peace, urging me to understand it was all for the family's good, that no one could predict the failure. I reeled at their gall. They used my money without permission, lost it, and expected me to just shrug? Hurt smoldered within me. I had 1,000 better uses for that 100K. Now it was vanished, leaving me with zero restitution. Even though I wanted to push for legal action, the inheritance had never transferred to me directly. Legally, it was tricky, as the funds were in my father's name or mother's name. I realized I was stuck, with no straightforward recourse, but to accept the loss or stir an ugly family lawsuit. I debated but decided not to go nuclear. The heartbreak might overshadow any gains. So, I distanced myself from them, made it clear I felt betrayed. Over time, we barely spoke, tension overshadowing any family gathering. My father would occasionally mention, "We'll fix this," but never produced a dime.
I channeled frustration into building my own life. I advanced in my job, saved diligently, ignoring the swirl of guilt from my father or mother about how I was abandoning the family. Meanwhile, my sister mooched off them, apparently refusing to find stable work after her failed venture. Time passed. I tried not to dwell on the lost inheritance, burying it as a painful memory. Maybe they'd eventually repay something, maybe not. I tried to move forward. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call from my father. He sounded frantic, saying my sister was in a dire predicament. Her bills had piled up, and she apparently wanted to try another business or new plan to bounce back. My father strongly suggested I help out financially. "She's your sister," he said. "We're a family. Can you contribute or sign a loan for her?" My mind reeled. They had the nerve to ask me for more money after swallowing my entire inheritance? I told him absolutely not, reminding him how they already took my 100K that was never returned. He got defensive, arguing that we're in crisis. Family must help each other. I retorted that he used up my entire portion already, so if they needed more funds, they could figure it out themselves. My mother chimed in later, texting me emotional appeals about how my sister was devastated, needed a second chance. I ignored them, refusing to be drawn in. Enough was enough. Suddenly, they pivoted tactics. My father claimed they'd found a great new business plan, guaranteed to recoup all losses. My mother tried sweet-talking me about how your sister regrets everything she's grown. The sense of entitlement was staggering. They expected I'd just pony up more money or risk them labeling me selfish. I stayed firm, telling them I wanted no part of it. My father muttered dire warnings of family estrangement if I didn't help. I sighed, accepting that if they intended to push me away for not funneling more money into my sister's pockets, so be it. Tension soared. Then, unexpectedly, a meltdown occurred at a small family event. My father or mother had convinced me to come for a quick lunch, claiming they wanted to just talk. Turned out it was an ambush. My sister was there, eyes puffy from tears, launching into a speech about how she needed a bailout. She tearfully insisted she was sorry for losing my inheritance, but that circumstances were harsh. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying only I could rescue her. She even tossed in emotional lines like, "What would grandmother want?" as if that dear woman would want me fleeced again. I kept my composure, though my heart hammered. I told them calmly that I had no intention of forking over more money. The meltdown that followed was epic. My father raged about me, turning my back on family. My mother shook her head, calling me ungrateful. My sister went from begging to snapping, cursing me for turning cold. She accused me of letting them all suffer. But I stood firm, 8 years of bitterness fueling my resolve. They'd used my inheritance for her doomed business once. They wouldn't get a second shot. After that fiasco, I cut contact. But the drama wasn't finished. My sister apparently spread rumors among some extended family that I was refusing to help, portraying me as a selfish individual who hoarded resources. She left out the part about devouring my rightful inheritance. Some gullible relatives gave me side-eye, calling me to question if it was true. I set them straight, explaining how my parents had misused my inheritance on my sister's business. Most were shocked, some outraged on my behalf. A few stuck to neutrality, not wanting to pick sides. But the friction within the family grew, with father or mother doubling down, claiming they were forced to use my portion to help my sister, that I agreed in principle. Absurd. Then it escalated further. My father left me a voicemail saying they expected me to do the right thing or else face permanent disownment. My mother wrote a snarky letter claiming I'd turn my back on them in their old age and that I was heartless to my sister. The sense of entitlement soared, as though they'd done nothing wrong in funneling my $100K away. They wanted me to bail them all out again, ignoring the fiasco that cost me my rightful inheritance. At this point, I was beyond livid. My sister's sense of entitlement had overshadowed decency, and my parents blindly coddled her. I decided to push back. I approached a lawyer friend, explaining that while the inheritance situation was murky, I wanted at least a formal statement clarifying that I'd never agreed to any arrangement. Possibly, I could claim some form of restitution or threaten legal action for misappropriation of my inheritance. The friend believed it was complicated, but suggested a strongly worded letter might scare them from continuing their demands. Good idea, I thought. So we drafted a letter, politely but firmly stating I never consented to giving my share to my sister, that I hold them accountable for misusing the funds, and that I'll take legal routes if they keep harassing me for more money. We couriered it to my parents, copying my sister. The reaction was explosive. My father called me, howling that I'd gone too far. My mother texted vile messages, calling me a traitor. My sister ranted online about how I was threatening lawsuits and tearing the family apart. But then an interesting twist emerged. A family friend who'd known about the original inheritance told me they'd overheard my father and mother acknowledging that the $100K was specifically intended for me, but they gave it all to my sister. This friend offered to be a witness if a legal dispute arose. Encouraged by this, I repeated to my father that I had a witness. He sputtered, backtracked, insisted I was being petty. My mother tried tearful apologies, claiming they only wanted to help their struggling daughter. But it rang hollow, given they continued pushing me to bail her out again. The final straw came when a group of extended relatives planned a small reunion. My father or mother insisted I attend so we could resolve everything. I went with reluctance, suspecting more drama. Indeed, as soon as I arrived, my sister cornered me, tears glistening, pleading, "Please, I need you to pay off the debts. I can't find a job. Dad told me you have money saved." She sounded pitiful, but I recalled how she never apologized for squandering my inheritance. "No," I said firmly, "that was my money you lost. I owe you nothing." She exploded into a tantrum, shouting that I was destroying her life. My mother jumped in, scolding me for lacking compassion, labeling me an ungrateful child. My father tried to physically separate us, urging calm, but the tension was massive. Some relatives tried to intervene. I calmly repeated the facts. They gave my entire inheritance to my sister without my permission. She wasted it, and now they want me to bail them out. I refused, full stop. In that chaotic gathering, a hush fell as I spelled out the truth. People stared at my sister, expecting her to deny it, but she couldn't. She just wailed about how it wasn't her fault the business failed. My father or mother stammered excuses, claiming they believed I'd be fine without the money. I hammered home the main point. They exploited me, leaving me with nothing, then demanded more. An older aunt or uncle maybe scolded them for their blatant favoritism. Some relatives glared at my sister, calling her selfish. She snapped back, calling me cold-hearted, whining about how she was just trying to build a future. But the tide was against her. No one sympathized with such blatant entitlement. Then came the meltdown. My father threatened me, saying if I refused again, I'd be disowned. Tired of his bluff, I told him to do what he wants. My mother wept, claiming I was punishing them by not rescuing my sister. I retorted that they were reaping the consequences of ignoring my rights. The crowd parted, letting me pass as I marched out. That was the last major conversation we had. After that fiasco, true to their threat, they cut me off from the family. I rarely speak to them now, but that was my father or mother's choice, not mine. My sister apparently is still jobless, saddled with debt from the failed business, squawking about how unfair life is. She tried emailing me once, a half apology wrapped in more demands. I never replied. Some relatives see me as the victim. Others remain neutral or confused. But I stand by my choice to protect myself from further exploitation. Word is, they're all in dire straits. My father or mother might face financial difficulties since they poured so much into my sister's business, hoping she'd succeed. They apparently expected me to swoop in with an extra loan to bail them out. But after everything, how could they possibly think I'd help? They burned that bridge when they gave away my rightful 100K inheritance and never sought to repay it. Now I rebuild quietly. I found a decent job that pays enough to start saving anew. It stings to remember that the 100K was meant for me, money that would have jump-started a house purchase or even further education. But I can't dwell on that bitterness forever. Maybe, ironically, that sum will remain a cautionary tale about trusting those who put one child's dreams above another's rights. My father or mother no longer have any say in my life, and my sister stands alone in the wreckage of her financial fiasco. Some people ask if I'd ever consider reconciling. Maybe if they return the money. But that's fantasy. They don't have it. Even an apology might do, but they persist in blaming me for being selfish. So no, there's no bridging this gap. The path forward for me is building a life separate from their manipulations. Perhaps that's the best outcome. My sister's out there, presumably cursing me for not bailing her out, but I feel little guilt. She made her choices, exploiting my inheritance. She lost everything. That's on her. Ultimately, I find a bittersweet closure in independence. My father or mother stand disappointed. My sister is financially ruined, and I remain the scapegoat in their eyes. But at least I'm free from their entanglements. That 100K is gone forever, but so is my naive trust in them. And if they ever come knocking for money again, they'll find the door firmly shut. I learned the hard way that sometimes family can't be trusted with something as simple as respecting your inheritance.